What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got some more NBA news to of course be talking about with you guys. This time I'm actually going to be talking about the recent report that's kind of come out that suggests that the Phoenix Suns are heavily interested in trading for Thad Young. This is all being reported by Jake Fisher of Bleacher Report. The current article suggests that the Suns have expressed interest in trading for Thaddeus Young, while the Spurs are interested in Jalen Smith. The two teams could potentially swap Young for Smith before the trade deadline. Now, I think this is an absolute perfect move for both teams, because even though I'm not too much of a fan of Jalen Smith, I think it was a pretty weird move at the time for the Phoenix Suns to take him. I mean, it never seemed like they really liked him from day one, so I don't know why they selected him at all. I'm not saying he's not good, I just think it was a really bizarre move by Phoenix. They could have had a lot of different players. Instead, they picked a guy that's like not even really in their rotation now. Like, I don't even know if they're even playing him. Like, he's getting 7 points per game, you know, just based on the fact that he's getting more minutes now, but leave because of some of the COVID things. And hey, 7 and 5 in 13 minutes per game is not bad at all. Plus, he's trying to shoot threes. Look, 16% isn't great, but for a young, center to actually just start shooting them is a start. And it looks like he might eventually play power forward. I mean, the dude is 6'9". You'd think he'd have to be a power forward going long term. Just depends on how mobile he can be. I'm not even too sure if he's playing it this season. I think he's still a center. But hey, I think when you look at the Phoenix Suns, they have got a really good team and a lot of really good big men. You got DeAndre Ayton at that center position. JaVale McGee at your backup center. Then you got Frank Kaminsky kind of coming off the bench, who can play the power forward. He can play a bit of the backup center as well. You got Bismack Biyombo, who they brought in, who I don't think will play much going forward. They've just brought him in on a 10-day contract because of the COVID issues they got. I believe DeAndre Ayton is out at the time making this video. And they've got tons of like forward players like, Jay Crowder, Cameron Johnson, Mikal Bridges. It is really crazy the depth this team has, and Jalen Smith, who looks like he could play a bit of power forward eventually, as well, if not, if he already isn't. But I think Thad Young would be a really, really good player to bring in, because he's pretty much just an upgrade over Jalen Smith, a really, really, really good veteran that I think would absolutely love to play on this Phoenix Suns team. How contracts match up, I'm not too sure. I think Jalen Smith's on about like probably $6 million or so. And then you look at Thad Young is on about 13 million, I think, or something like that last time I checked. There's also the fact that the Phoenix Suns actually decided not to offer Jalen Smith, I believe his third or fourth year was one of them, which is so crazy that a dude taking a pick 10 that actually really hasn't been given a chance didn't even get offered that extra year, which is really surprising. I think that's just for flexibility, but still crazy to me. Thad Young doesn't really make sense on this Spurs team, because he's a 33-year-old that is averaging, 6 and 3.5 rebounds per game, but he's an elite defender still at this age, which is crazy. Last year he played really good, averaging 12 points per game, 6 rebounds on around 24 minutes, and crazy defense. Like, he is still a really good defender in my opinion. He can guard the 4, can guard the 5. I think he actually comes into this Phoenix Suns team and he'd absolutely play perfect, because when we look at it in the long term, they do have their starting center in DeAndre Ayton. And then they, of course, got their, backup center in JaVale McGee. The starting power forward is Jay Crowder, and their backup power forward is probably Frank Kaminsky. And then you still got Jalen Smith and, of course, Bismack Biyombo on the side. But Biyombo's going to get waived because it was only a 10-day contract. Smith is going to get traded, it looks like. So bringing in a dude like Thad Young, who can maybe play you around 10 to 15 minutes per game or so at that backup center and power forward, would be absolutely insane. And hey, if you want to run a really, really tall team, look, I'm not too sure if this would work, but we've seen the Cavs run like a team, which this was crazy when I saw it on the court together. I'm pretty sure like this one time they had 7 foot Evan Mobley at the power forward position, of course, 7 foot Jarrett Allen at center, 7 foot Larry Markkinen at the small forward, and they had like 6'7" Jetty Osman at the shooting guard, like 6'3" Ricky Rubio. Like, that's got to be the tallest team in NBA history. I don't see why the Phoenix Suns couldn't, if they really needed to. Like, if one night they've got a couple of guards missing because of COVID or something like that, why not could they have like Kaminsky, Thad Young, and JaVale on the court at the same time? People might say, well, the shooting and the spacing would be absolutely terrible. How can you even suggest that? I don't even see that, because Thad Young has a really good and underrated mid-range on him Plus, look, he's not the most consistent three-point shooter, but he can do it. And this is the same with Frank Kaminsky. Like, he can shoot the three ball. Last year, he shot 31 of, 85 threes, which is 36.5% from three. And in previous years, he shot up to 125 threes. And even before that, 140. Like, this dude can shoot the three. And Thad Young's going to mean mid-range on him. It would be pretty close out the Cavs 3 7-footers, except just wouldn't be as consistent shooting. But defensively, they might be, pretty good as well. I can't see why a player like Thad Young couldn't go and guard, a small forward here and there like Tobias Harris. Like, I wouldn't put it past him at all to be able to do that. So, it really kind of gives you flexibility. And because of the Cleveland Cavaliers, they've kind of made this path where the NBA has now had an opportunity to have teams run tall ball. Because they've seen how good the Cleveland Cavaliers have done with it, that some teams are actually saying, well, we've been doing small ball for this long time. Should we maybe think about this? And I think the Phoenix Suns could be one of those teams that actually do it. And look, they've got shooters all around to be able to do it. Let's just say one day you decide to put, Frank Kaminsky, JaVale McGee, and, Thad Young on the court at the same time. Look, the shooting isn't great, but you've got a player that can hit the mid-range. You've got a player that can hit the three. All three are capable defenders. Frank Kaminsky, not as much. But then you could put someone like Landry Shamet at that shooting guard and still a player like, Chris Paul and Mikal Bridges. I mean, not Mikal Bridges, sorry. Chris Paul or Cameron Payne at that point guard position. Most likely Cam Payne, because he's obviously the bench unit. And Cam Payne is still a relatively nice three-point shooter. Like, he's been a bit inconsistent this year, but he can hit the three. You look at Landry Shamet as well, still a 37% from three type of guy. This team could definitely work, even if it might be a little bit too big. I don't see why you wouldn't explore trading for, Thad Young. Plus, with the San Antonio Spurs, this would be absolutely great to, bring in a dude like Jalen Smith, because I think Jalen Smith makes a lot of sense for their team, because he is a really, really young guy. He fits kind of their timeline of rebuilding, and people won't like to admit this because the Spurs have been so good for so long, except for the last couple of seasons, but the Spurs are building something pretty special. Like, if we look at their team now, you got DeAndre Murray's 25, he's entering his prime. Colin Johnson's 22, Derek White's 27, 28, 27, he's turning 28, probably enter his prime. Jakob Poeltl, he's still only 26. Lonnie Walker's 23. Devin Vassell is 21. And Bryn Forbes is 28. You've got a really, really nice young team. And a player I'd like to give a shout out to, because he did play in the NBL and has been really good for the Spurs in the minutes that he's had, is actually Jock Landale, who seems to be their backup center, playing around 8 minutes or so per game. He's had to play behind Thad Young. He's had to play, behind Jakob Poeltl and a couple other players. But when he's played, he's actually played really, really good. So he might get more minutes to Thad Young out. And Jalen Smith might get a little bit more minutes if he tries to prove himself as well. But I think, eventually, the Spurs have been running a little bit more small ball recently. I think they might go taller a little bit more. And I couldn't see why Jalen Smith couldn't, run some power forward. Jock Landale could get more minutes to that backup center position as well. And I think their team would start to look really, really good. And again, as I said, you trade away Thad Young, you're immediately unlocking 15 minutes per game, where you could maybe give them all to Jalen Smith, or you can move Jalen Smith to the power forward position, go a little bit taller, and maybe give Jock Landale some minutes as well. I'm not exactly too sure how they're going to go about this, but I think the Spurs have put themselves in a really good position, and I think so have the Suns. Credit to both teams. One's really, really good, one's trying to rebuild, and both are doing what they're doing pretty great, if you ask me. So I think it's actually a pretty good trade for both teams. And this seems to be the Thaddeus Young trade, and it has been revealed. Hopefully, I think it happens. I really would like this to, and I would really like to see another team follow the Cavs' footsteps and run a tall ball team. Like, if I see Thad Young, JaVale McGee, and Frank Kaminsky on the court together at the same time, and if any of you see it, come back to this video and leave a comment, because I'm saying it would be a cool experiment, and if the Cavs can do it, I don't see why the Phoenix Suns couldn't do it as well. But of course, if you haven't already, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for the latest NBA content and NBA news. Of course, don't forget to subscribe to my gaming channel and my IRO/Long channels. And, you just check out my podcast as well if you haven't already. Comment your thoughts and views down below. Do you guys think Thad Young would be good for the Suns? Do you guys think Jalen Smith would be good for the Spurs? Of course, I would very much like to know. But as I was saying, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.